This is Jacqueline from Lichen Sclerosus Support Network, where our mission is to empower people with lichen sclerosis by providing evidence-based education and support so that we can live in a world where those affected by lichen sclerosis are informed, educated, and get diagnosed early. If you find the information in our videos helpful, then please consider donating your time or money so that we can continue our LS education and support efforts. All right, so in today's video, we are going to actually be talking about a kind of controversial topic. Definitely a topic that is a source of a lot of debate, pros, cons. Yeah, we're going to be talking about taking pictures of your vulva when you have lichen sclerosus. Why should you do this? What are the pros? What are some of the cons? What are maybe some ways to safely store those pictures? So, privacy concerns, we're going to address all of that in today's video. Today's video, in my opinion, is incredibly important. I'm a huge proponent of photo taking, but we'll get into that later. So as always, if you like this video, please leave us a like. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any more LS content. And with that, let's jump into things. Okay, so one of the overall benefits of taking photos of your vulva is to have an objective timeline documenting how your skin is progressing. This can be helpful in many contexts, which I'm going to draw on as we go through this, but that's kind of the main overall benefit. Now, who is taking the pictures? There are three main categories for this. So you yourself can take the picture. Your healthcare provider may take the picture, or you may have a caregiver who's taking the picture. We're going to walk through all three of those categories, and we're going to start with you yourself. So you may choose to take a picture of your vulva during your monthly vulva check. Now, we at LSSN are big proponents of doing a monthly vulva check. If you're like, wait, sorry, what's a vulva check? We have videos that explain what they are, how to do them. Those will be dropped in the description box below so you can learn more about those. But essentially, we recommend that you do a vulva check once a month. And at the end of that vulva check, you may opt to take a photo of your vulva if you feel comfortable. Now, why might you want to do this? Well, again, it all comes down to having this objective timeline, this objective piece that we can kind of go back to and see what's happening in our skin. I'll tell you that for me, I used to think, oh, I would look at my vulva one month and be like, my vulva did not look like that last month. And the truth is, I don't really remember what my vulva looked like last month. I have an idea, but it's not perfect. Our memories as human beings are not, absolute perfection. So having something where I can actually look back and say, what did I look like last month? Oh, I actually look the same. Never mind. The panic that I was feeling isn't warranted. There are really not any changes. Okay, I feel better. Or conversely, wait a minute, there is a substantial change from last month to this month. I'm going to want to note that down and talk to my healthcare provider about it. So a lot of us are unable to see our doctors every couple of months, right? A lot of us are going every 3, 6 to 12 months. That's not often for a lot of us, right? So a lot of us want to know, how am I doing? Is my skin better? Am I getting better? I don't know. And so again, having that objective timeline there, you can look month to month and see, how is my skin responding to treatment? Am I seeing, color improvement, texture improvement? Are things stable? Does the skin look healthy? We can kind of watch that and get a better idea about how our body is healing. Another way that taking pictures ourselves and storing these can be beneficial is in our conversations with healthcare providers. So here's something that I get a lot on my one-on-one peer support calls is people will tell me that they went to their doctor and said to their doctor something akin to, my labia got much smaller. And their doctor looks at their vulva and goes, no, you look fine. It looks the exact same. It looks normal. Don't worry, nothing to worry about. And the person leaves feeling very gaslit, very belittled, very invalidated, frustrated, because they know that their labia has indeed changed and it did indeed get smaller. But the healthcare provider doesn't believe them. Now, this could either be the same healthcare provider that they've been seeing for a while, or it may be a new healthcare provider. Now, if it's the same healthcare provider they've been seeing for a while, If the change is not super duper drastic and obvious, they just may not remember, right? If they're not taking pictures themselves, I always say our memories aren't perfect, but neither are our healthcare providers. And they see dozens and hundreds and thousands of vulvas throughout the year. So if I see you 1 year and then I come back the following year and say my labia got smaller, I don't think you have the exact image of what my vulva looked like 1 year ago in my head, so sharp that you can say with absolute certainty that no change has taken place. So if I had pictures, I could actually show that doctor and say, I know you're not seeing a change, but here's what I looked like 1 year ago, and here's what I look like now. And you could even show them month by month the changes that are kind of occurring in real time. So they may be more inclined to say, oh, wow, yes, you're right. I am seeing a change. Let's talk about this. Another thing that can happen is that if you change healthcare providers, they're seeing your vulva for the first time. And so what you know to be abnormal might look normal to them. So often another thing that I hear is people switch healthcare providers and they say, I've got, more, my tissue is shrinking, things are getting smaller. And the doctor looks at them and goes, no, this is a perfectly healthy vulva, nothing to worry about. Now, part of this is because vulvar diversity is indeed so diverse, right? There are folks with super small vulvas and vulvas that come in different shapes and sizes and colors and symmetries, and all of it can be so normal. So even a vulva that, has teeny tiny or almost no labia, that can still be a normal, healthy vulva. So when you're going to a new doctor, remember they're seeing you for the first time. They haven't seen how your vulva has been evolving over the years. So what they're seeing may be normal. So instead, what you can say is, hey, look, this is what I used to look like. See how I had some inner labia there and see how it's completely resorbed now? Again, that gives them the objective picture, that gives them more context to really understand what's going on instead of that one snapshot. Now you're presenting an objective history. It can really help those conversations with healthcare providers, especially when we're talking about changes to our vulvas that they're not so sure have been happening. So that can be a great one. I want to share one more story with respect to why picture taking or taking pictures ourselves can be beneficial. And this one has to do with something that happened to me. So this is probably a couple of years ago, and I was doing a vulva check, and I noticed that around the clitoris, I noticed this like kind of the color of my nail polish, like a reddish, purplish, very dark looking, kind of, in hindsight looked like a bruise because it was a bruise, but I didn't know it was a bruise at the time. And there's like this kind of circle, very, very dark, very hyperpigmented. Now it didn't hurt, it didn't itch, but it was there and I was very alarmed because it was not there during my last check. So I went like, let's just pretend March. And then I did the check in April and it was there around the clitoris. And that really freaked me out. For folks that have been following me for a while, you know that I'm quite prone to health anxiety. So, my mind immediately kind of spiraled and catastrophized. And I started, worrying that this was a cancerous lesion. And anyway, so I made an appointment with my GP because she was the one I could see most quickly. And nonetheless, even though she was quick, that was still 3 weeks. So I had to wait 3 weeks to get in. Now, I'm sure you've had this happen where Friday afternoon, you get a rash on your arm. So you book in with your doctor and they say, cool, come Monday. And you're like, all right, cool, great. And then Monday comes around and all of a sudden that darn rash is gone. So you sit in her office and you say, well, I had a rash here. And she said, well, you look fine now. I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't see what it looked like. So I don't really know. Next time it happens, come in. That happens to me all the time. I know it happens to a lot of people, and it's incredibly frustrating because now not only did I waste my time, potentially her time, but I don't even have any answers. I don't even know what that rash was. So I don't know what to do if that happens next time. So what I did when I saw that purple reddish, circular dot around the clitoral area, I took a picture. And of course, as you might expect, 3 weeks later, when I went to go see my GP, that had completely disappeared. So I said to her, I found the spot on my clitoris. It's completely resolved, but I did take a picture of it, and I'm hoping that you could take a look and tell me what this could be. And she took a look. She said, yeah, of course, show me the picture. So I showed her, and she said, oh, that's a bruise. This can be quite common. Bruising is a common sign of lichen sclerosus. If this happens again, don't worry. Bruising is completely benign. You don't have to like increase your clobetasol, just keep doing as you're doing, and it's just going to kind of fade on its own. So that way, I still left the office knowing what happened, what to do if it happened again. I knew, okay, I don't need to adjust my treatment plan. I don't need to do anything special. It's benign. I just leave it be. But I may not have known that if I wasn't able to bring that picture in for her to see. So these are some of the benefits of taking pictures ourselves. What are some of the cons? Well, for some of us, there's a lot of shame and stigma around our genitals, and this can be a very mentally daunting and challenging thing for us to do, to, confront and really look at and see our genitals, particularly early in the diagnosis stage where there might be, a lot of scarring, a lot of hyperpigmentation, a lot of changes that we're, trying to process. So that's one reason that's kind of a con, is that like it can be very emotionally challenging. And I think that if that's you, don't feel like you have to do this immediately. If you're really feeling a lot of emotional turbulence and you're not feeling safe about this might be something to talk through with a therapist or in a support group space where you can really feel compassion and support in this and work your way up to it. Know that you absolutely are not forced to take pictures at all if you do not feel comfortable. And you also don't have to do it today, right? Maybe you want to start in a few months. That's okay too. Another con that some people see is, of course, probably you're like, well, yeah, of course, is privacy, right? So if you're taking a picture on your mobile device, you may be apprehensive because what if that gets, what if somebody opens my phone? What if my kid opens my phone and they start scrolling and see it, or a friend sees it? How private is it? It's just out there, open on my phone, my vulva. I don't want other people to get access to that. Super fair, super valid. And later on in the videos, we're actually going to talk about different ways to securely store your photos and encrypt them so that you kind of don't need to worry as much about those security issues. But those are some of the cons when it comes to taking photos of yourself. Okay, the second way that photos can be taken of vulvas with vulvar lichen sclerosus is actually by having your healthcare provider take the picture themselves. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them this because many clinics, universities, hospitals don't offer to have the healthcare provider take the picture. And if wherever you go for your lichen sclerosus, if they don't offer to take your picture and they don't do it, a lot of the times it's because there's a lot of legal bureaucratic stuff that kind of goes on behind the scenes. So to ensure that, things are safe and private for the patient, we have to make sure that there are forms documenting informed consent, all of these things. So not everyone offers it, but there certainly are clinics, hospitals, and places that do have healthcare providers take pictures at every visit. In fact, my vulvar specialist in Toronto takes a picture every single time I go for a follow-up, and bless, because it's been so educational to have her do that. It really adds so much benefit to my appointments, and I'm so grateful that that Women's College Hospital here in Toronto does that. So let's talk about why, or in what ways, what are the pros of a healthcare provider taking your pictures? Well, for one thing, they can be helpful for the provider themselves. So remember how I was saying, like, our memories aren't great, but also healthcare providers, their memories aren't perfect either, right? And they're seeing a lot of vulvas, seeing a lot of cases of vulvovaginal conditions. And if they're seeing you a year later, they may not remember exactly what your vulva looked like the last time you were in their chair. So when they first start chatting with you, how are things going? What are your symptoms? What are your concerns? And they're looking at your file, they can pull up a picture of how you looked last time they were in your office. And then when they go to do the clinical exam, they can kind of compare. They take a new picture and they can kind of see, okay, has there been improvement? Have things stayed stable? Are things getting worse? What's the overall objective clinical picture here so that they can best treat you and help manage your lichen sclerosus? So if you are in remission and things are perfect and you are stable, then they might just say, great, look at this. You are doing amazing. Your vulva looks great. Everything looks healthy. Keep it up. No changes to your treatment plan. That's it. That's all. If they see something's getting worse, maybe there's loss of pigmentation, maybe there's been some new scarring, then they might have a conversation. Okay, how are you currently treating? Okay, let's talk about tweaks to how you're dosed. Let's talk about tweaks. Maybe we change up the steroid. Maybe we add in some vaginal estrogen. Let's see what we can do to kind of get this back on track, right? So it's a really helpful thing. Or, sometimes they come in and the clinical picture is, there's a lot of scarring, there's a lot of fissures and there's redness and hypopigmentation and you can just tell that the patient is in a lot of pain and discomfort. And then a year later, or 6 months later, they might come in and say, holy crap, you're doing amazing. Like, look at the changes. And that can be really helpful because sometimes we don't see those changes ourselves, especially if you're not doing vulva checks or taking your own pictures. So that if you're not taking your own pictures and you're not looking yourself, at least now you have a healthcare provider doing it. They can show you the progress that you have made. Sometimes we feel like we're not making progress, and then our healthcare providers show us the two pictures back to back, and you're like, holy cow, like I actually am, my skin does look better, and I didn't even realize that I was improving in this way. So that can be really helpful. It can also be used as an education tool, right? So we can kind of show you, here's where there's an issue. Here's where I want you to concentrate. When you put that clobetasol on, I really want you to focus on this area. I'm going to give you a different medication. I want you to put it here and apply it in this way. So it can be very educational. It can help them understand how you're progressing, where you are and what you need. And it can also help them educate and show the patient what's going on in their bodies, where they should be putting medication, so on and so forth. Now, it's important to note here that ultimately at the end of the day, if where you go, they do offer to take your picture, you do not have to say yes. At the end of the day, it is your body, it is your choice. If for any reason you are not comfortable, you can simply say no. If you do want them to take pictures, normally either the clinician themselves, the doctor, or a nurse, some kind of staff on who's working, they're going to kind of bring out a document, informed consent, going through all the privacy stuff that you need to know, how the images are stored securely, all of these things so that you feel safe and confident saying yes. So you'll sign the informed consent paper. And by the way, with informed consent in these kind of instances, you can always take that back. You can always at the next appointment say, nope, you know what? I decided I'm not okay with this. I don't want my pictures taken anymore. That is totally your right to do it. Again, I was mentioning that my doctor did it. And one of the most incredible kind of back-to-backs I experienced was when I was prescribed topical testosterone, 2% compounded in petroleum jelly. I was prescribed that kind of off-label in this kind of like, we're not sure if it's going to work or what it's going to do, but maybe it will help unfuse the clitoris. In addition to doing sustained stretching and myofascial release, I have so much content on my clitoral unfusing story. I'm not going to go into it. I'll just leave all the links below. I just have an abundance of links on my unfusing story. But anyways, when I first saw her, I had complete clitoral phimosis. The hood of the clitoris was completely scarred over the glands. And she took a picture of what that looks like when it's completely scarred, when there was no mobility, no retraction, no visualization of the glands. And then she took the photo 8 weeks after, 8 weeks of testosterone, plus clitoral myofascial release, plus sustained stretches. And I knew that I had unfused because I was doing the stretches and stuff in the mirror, so I could see that I unfused. But let me tell you, when I saw that before and after picture, I sobbed. I was in shock. I knew I had unfused, but seeing the before and after, like words can't express the shock and the gratitude that I felt in that moment. That it was just such a sharp contrast that, again, I was just so grateful that she had taken those pictures so I could really see the profound impact that that had on me. So again, the pros of having a healthcare provider do this is it helps them monitor your progress, gives them an objective picture, a better understanding of how the skin is healing. It can provide an educational tool for them to help you better understand what's happening in your body and how to apply your medication. Can also help that before and after compare contrast. When we talk about cons, again, something similar to the con of doing them yourself is it can feel very vulnerable, right? We're naked from the waist down in the stirrups, and then they're taking pictures on their phone, and it can just feel very vulnerable and icky, and it might bring up feelings of shame, and it can bring up so much emotion. And so if that's the case, and those things come up again, discussing those with support people, whomever they are, whether it's a support group, a counselor, a cherished friend that feels safe, just make sure that you're talking and working through those types of emotions. And again, if they're too strong, right, you do not have to consent to the picture taking. You can also say, I'm not ready at today's visit. Can you ask me at next visit? And maybe I'll reconsider, but I'm not feeling safe with this today. So maybe next time. That is always your right. Again, your body, your choice. All right, so the last person that may be taking a picture of your vulva could be a caretaker. So for folks that may have certain mobility issues that aren't able to perhaps see or to move their bodies in ways where they can take a picture themselves, they may have a caregiver who may take the picture for them. Now, in these contexts, it's important that both parties consent and that respect and dignity is given on both accounts. So both caregiver and the person with vulvar lichen sclerosus are treated with respect and dignity throughout. Now, assuming those things are in place, consent is there, it's a safe, healthy dynamic, then the caregiver may choose to take a photo once a month with the vulva check of the person with lichen sclerosus on a cell phone, get some good lighting, get us, make sure you have a good angle and take the picture. And just, be mindful of what did they look like last month, right? If there's any changes that you're seeing as a caregiver, note those changes down and then book an appointment with their healthcare provider to discuss those changes and see if any tweaks need to be made to their treatment plan. Okay, let's talk a little bit about privacy and storing your photos now, because this is probably one of the biggest concerns when we talk about taking pictures of our children, right? If we are going to be taking these types of pictures, which are very sensitive, we want to make sure that they're not being shared, that somebody doesn't stumble upon them, right? We want to make sure that they are stored privately and securely. Now, with some phones, when you take a photo, they automatically get uploaded to a cloud. So we want to make sure that that's not happening. Now, one big recommendation for taking photos is to take advantage of different apps that safely and securely store and encrypt your photos. So they are completely private. They're in a gallery all of its own. They're often password protected, so only you have the password. Sometimes they even have biometrics. So to open up your gallery, you would use your fingerprint. So you would take your phone and put your finger on the biometric pad, scans you, realizes it's you, and then lets you in. A lot of these apps are hidden, they're kind of disguised, right? They don't say like private photos, they'll say like, I have one and it's a calculator app. So it just looks like a calculator. So for anyone scrolling and opening my phone, they're not going to see anything in my regular pictures, and they might just see that I have a calculator app. By the way, it functions like a regular calculator. So even if they found the calculator app and wanted to do a math equation, they could, and it would work. The only way that they would be able to get in is if they had my fingerprint or my password. So just to name a couple, I know there's Vaulty for Android. That's a really, really popular one. That one does kind of disguise itself as a calculator. Gallery Vault is another for Android. When it comes to iPhones, I'm not an iPhone user, but there's Hidden Vault, Private Photo Vault, KeepSafe, Locker, and Secret Photos to explore. When it comes to choosing the apps, I really say take your time. You can read reviews online about these apps. What are the pros and cons of each of them? You can look wherever you download your apps from. They normally have ratings, right? So you can see like, oh, okay, this app is like 5 stars. Everybody's very happy with it. Do your research and find, the one that works best for you, one that stores them securely, encrypts them, really maintains privacy. Explore your options. And of course, for anybody listening, if you currently are using an app to hide your photos, please drop any app recommendations in the comments below. We would love to hear that and love to hear more options that we can recommend to people. So definitely sound off in the comments below. And to sum up this video, photo taking is a controversial topic. mostly due to security and the sensitivity of taking these types of photos and how it can sometimes bring up a lot of emotion for the people with lichen sclerosus who are kind of looking at these images and feeling, guilt, shame, ickiness, all of these things. If you're feeling these emotions, definitely reach out to your support group. Whichever support group that is, reach out to them, talk to your therapist, talk to your counselor, just make sure you're getting support to work through those emotions, so that you're not stuck sitting with those alone. So I've been there and it's really not a fun place to be. And again, if you're going to store pictures on your phone, just make sure that you're doing them through an app that is really keeping them safe and private, so nobody's wandering eye is going to find them, and they are safely encrypted behind the app. Again, it just gives us a really nice objective timeline of what's going on in our vulva and can really help us advocate for ourselves in a healthcare setting when healthcare providers are just kind of like, no, nothing's changed. And we're like, but it did. Look here. So that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. We will catch you in the next one.